Hi, hun. You know how you asked me to not make your birthday all about you? Well, you just have to indulge me this one. It's been a labor of love putting together this video for you. So enjoy. Happy birthday.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller played.
Songs that made the hit parade.
Guys like us, we had him paid.
Those were the days.
David Weiden.
This is your life.
Hi, David.
It's not time to make a change. Just relax, take it easy. You're still young.
I'm Paul Weiden, and I have the honor and privilege of being David's dad. David was a spirited baby. You know, some babies, you just feed them and you change them. And then if they keep crying, you leave them in the crib and you just go outside and walk around the block. Probably today that would be considered child abuse, but that was certainly necessary to survive David's first few years and probably the first 40 years.
Marty invited me over for lunch while John was working, and while I was there, she introduced me to David, who screamed the entire time.
She comes skimming through rays of violet.
The thing that was remarkable about David from a very young age is he would get extremely focused on something. And he was imaginative in coming up with superpowers, magic numbers like 155, favorite words like geep, which is still one of his favorite words.
I am almost 4 years younger than David. He used to do things like when we were in the back of the car, on a car trip, he would draw a line down the middle of the back seat and tell me, I'm sitting over here. And he wasn't actually doing anything, so he never actually got in trouble for anything, but it was psychological terrorism.
Some say the game of life is well represented by the game of Monopoly. Tonight in Poole's Corner, we meet a youngster who has the game of life down pretty well.
You know, Monopoly's just a game. What's so great about it?
Well, I like it because it combines luck and skill. And a lot of games don't do that, and I like that it deals with money and that it has some real value to it.
I tend to play Monopoly fairly aggressively, and I didn't give David any quarter when we played, and he then became very aggressive as well.
They came not for Trivial Pursuit or any Trivial Pursuit, but for Championship Monopoly.
The first round I didn't do very well, I did okay, and then this round I went bankrupt.
We need to be careful that he's playing with real money now, and he's playing with other people's money with his partner Vinod Khosla.
He's a stockbroker, he's a state champ, he's 12 years old. Meet the Mercer Island Whiz Kid.
He's different from a lot of kids his age in many respects because he has some different interests. On the other hand, he's really pretty typical of kids his age.
There's no question that David looks, talks, and acts like a typical 13-year-old, but that translates to real problems when it comes to dealing with stockbrokers.
So, David, tell me, where do you think a reporter with a little extra money on his hands should do some investing?
Well, you should probably buy into a diversified portfolio with all the stocks having a current ratio of less than 4, because otherwise the P ratio will get too high and the equity rate will get too low.
Okay, good.
When Mark visited this young financial whiz kid, David was preparing his own tax return, and yes, you guessed it, he has some good tax shelters, and the IRS will not be receiving a check from him this year.
I remember he came into class and he said, you know, the way the stock market is, I think the stock market's going to crash. You know, I'm looking at this punk kid and I'm thinking, well, what does he know? The stock market crashed about 2 weeks after he said that. He predicted it, this little punk kid.
relationship with David was he would help me with my homework, and I would help him figure out what girls to ask to the dance and who he might select.
He was a ladies' man in his own sort of way.
I think we didn't really necessarily like each other so much in 7th grade. It may be that I was jealous of his Monopoly championship.
I would rank him as by far the best we ever had in Seattle out of the 9 years I was there. And the phone call with David that I remember very clearly still was he just earned himself $1,200 making 2 sales calls after he spent the day water skiing. So he was fairly good at customizing life the way he wanted to and being very successful at it.
Where did Daddy go to college?
Harvard.
Where did Grandpa go to college?
Harvard.
Where did Wendy go to college?
Harvard.
Lots of Harvard. You think you'll go to Harvard?
No.
Harvard was a good fit for him.
Rope coxswains have to be fairly confident in what they're doing and able to take these 8 oarsmen who are all excellent athletes and twice the size of the coxswain in their own right, and gain their respect and be consistent and be fairly authoritative in commanding them.
From Harsha Lake at East Fork State Park in Cincinnati, Ohio, it's the 1992 Collegiate Rowing Championships.
You've got one heck of a race between Harvard and Dartmouth.
Harvard was not the favored crew and was probably not the better crew. Dartmouth was.
And now Dartmouth is moving. Dartmouth seems to be moving out just marginally each stroke. Harvard answering it, Harvard very smooth.
And they rode a terrific race that probably remains, even independent of the fact that the Harvard Cox was my son, the single most exciting sporting event I've ever seen.
Here comes Harvard, here comes Harvard, here comes Harvard, this is
What a finish. What a finish between Harvard and Dartmouth. Looks like Harvard has captured the 1992 National Collegiate Rowing Championships. Look at the blow up of this finish here, gentlemen, and that'll give you an idea. Check it out there.
Literally inches. Yeah, probably 2 or 3 inches.
Congratulations to Harvard, 1992 National Collegiate Rowing Championships, as they make their way up to the platform here to receive the championship awards here.
I applaud all of these men and women and wish them well in all that lies before them.
I think I was probably a junior in high school, and literally I answered the phone and he said, "Are you winning?" And I said, "What? What do you mean?" He goes, "The game of life. Are you winning it?"
David was like very, very talented guy, but different type of person. So there was no way to get kind of the good parts of David. You couldn't get the best of David without figuring out what to do with the rest of David.
Nobody I've ever met in my life talks like this man, period.
This is how he talks.
I would think it would probably take about 9 months to figure out the true gem of David. It's just, you have to be patient, but once you feel the love and you realize what you're in for, he's a very special guy that way.
Heaven, I'm in heaven.
He sort of like hunted and stalked me down, and he wrote me this email, which was an incredibly interesting email, but it was long and it espoused the virtues of the movie Braveheart and war in general. It was a constant internal battle of David being 51% incredibly interesting and 49% totally weird. Yeah, he's only 30% weird now.
When we out together, dancing cheek to cheek.
You know, the two of us are probably a pretty unlikely pair. You know, I'm sort of 6'4", 240 pounds, and David's less than that. And so I'm this giant, and he's a giant in the mind.
Sometimes I think David keeps guys like me around because we're entertaining to him. And we keep him around because he keeps us from going down some bad spiral.
Now if you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Putting on the Ritz.
Daddy sometimes talks on the phone outside in his underwear.
That's David. Hi. He couldn't get his eyes off his crackberry. And you say hi, and I'd say, without putting my head up.
I don't talk on the phone.
David can't go 6 hours without his iPhone, so he actually constantly has on his knee his iPhone underneath. And I usually sit across from him, and I'll take almonds under the table and try to knock it off, like when I'm really bored at the partners meeting. And so it has actually fallen off a couple times, and he's been yelled at profusely.
I don't know if he ever sleeps without it. Angela might be able to tell you.
David's now obsession with the phone is really no different than the way he was committed as a child, let's say when he was into Monopoly.
David won most likely to succeed in life, and I also was listed along with him. So nice work, David.
Yes, I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow.
He's gone from being really one of the weirdest people I've ever met to a guy who I love dearly and would do anything for.
David has taught me how to pay attention to details. When I work with him, I'm sure to pay attention to details a lot more now.
David is a unique individual.
David is a character.
David is special.
Daddy doesn't play games.
David is complicated.
David is committed.
David is legendary.
David's intelligent.
David's hilarious.
He's very crafty.
Kind of different.
David is one of a kind.
He's like a fine wine.
Sometimes he's serious, sometimes he's silly.
David is true. David is determined. David is loyal.
Daddy's tall.
David is generous.
David is relentless.
Another word, by the way, would be misunderstood, but we can talk about that some other time.
David is 107 pounds of pure determination.
That's David. Hi.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear David. Happy birthday to you.
All right.
1, 2, 3, 4. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Bertie. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Dave.
Congrats. Love you, man.
Happy birthday, David. We love you.
David, I love you. Mwah.
There we go. We're done. That's enough.
I'm Uncle Sam. How do you do? Summer